Hello friends, welcome to EPG Pathshala. This is Dr. Nandita Mandal from Tata Institute of Social Sciences, Center for Labour Studies. Today I am going to talk on Rabindranath Tagore and adult education in rural reconstruction. Tagore's views on education. Let's talk about that. Tagore's educational writings are mostly scattered in his voluminous literature, in independent essays, numerous speeches and invaluable letters, a small number of which have been collected in books and journals. Very less have been through the lens of researchers, as these were in Bengali and have not yet been translated into English. His literary genius has been overpowered his work on education. Shikshar Herfer, written while he was just 31 years old, is considered as first ever comprehensive criticism of educational system of the country at that time. He was staunch believer in the value of education as the most fundamental prerequisite of the progress of a nation. While he welcomed the desire for self-determination in education, he appealed to his countrymen to consider national problems in an objective and rational manner and to focus on national reconstruction with the village as the center. He kept on writing about the subject in the editorial columns of Sadhana under the general title of Prasanga Katha. In 1905, in the article titled Purva Prashner Anubritti, he argued, "It is necessary to remember that if we place education in the hands of government, they will attempt through that education to build their own interest and not ours. They will so arrange that a farmer may remain farmer in his village. They will not bother to make him a true citizen of India. We can impart education according to our desire only if we take education in our hands. It's absurd both to beg and to order." A much stronger statement of Tagore's educational philosophy is found in his article Shiksha Samasya. According to his opinion, true national education is one which is originally linked with the life of a nation and which is natural process through the accumulated endeavors and the cherished ideals and traditions of the people of the land. His thoughts couldn't match up with then official policy of National Education Council, having idea of launching Western type of political agitation which mainly appealed for favors to the ruling power during colonial period. After initial excitement of the movement subsided, Tagore drifted from this Western thoughts towards building his own evolving ideology. His writing on this direction reflected in Tapoban, where he introduced a new idea of the education of feeling, Bodher Sadhana, and he clearly distinguished it from the education of the senses and the education of the intellect. This education of feeling consists of realization of man's bond of union with the universe through the spirit, through the soul, through the deeper intuition of feeling. Tagore visualized the educational system of India to attain the characteristic truth of her civilization pursued through centuries by her prophets, thinkers and saints, and that truth is not commercialism, imperialism or nationalism. That truth is universalism. A letter of Tagore titled Shiksha Vidhi, the method of education, reflected philosophy of educational method in the context of then existing socio-political and educational conditions of India. He said that education can be imparted only by a teacher and never by a method. Man can learn only from a man. Just as the water tank can be filled only with water and fire can be kindled only with fire, life can be inspired only with life. The mere pill or a method instead shall bring us to no salvation. The above discussion brings home the point that Tagore visualized education as not mere an equipment to progress in life materialistically, but a process of making of human being amidst its natural surroundings, where life has deep rooted relationship with its entire ecology. This idea link between life and education is experimented as Sriniketan experiment in later part of his life, where he tried to build a constant interaction between the peasants of the villages around Sriniketan with the students. Let's talk about Sriniketan experiment. How did it start? At the end of 1880s, as directed by his father, Tagore had shouldered the responsibility to look after the family estates in Shilaida and Potishar, which is now in Bangladesh. Thus began his navigation with village folk, mostly the underprivileged. He spent his days and nights on board of a houseboat on the river Padma and observed the varied landscape of countryside bequeathed with the natural offerings of 6 seasons of Bengal and the way local people got entwined their lives with nature. He not only achieved the pinnacle of his literary creation in that milieu, but get aligned with the local people in their pain of daily drudgery and struggle against at the frick of natures. Atrocious stoicism of state, casteism, wraths of feudal lords, communalism, colonialism, all of these made him empathize with hapless poor village folk of rural Bengal. Perhaps here his belief got shaped on the principle of self-help and enlightenment for the future program of rural reconstruction, which reinforced by painful memories of his own school days, where mechanical, lifeless rote learning was the order of the day, obliged him to take upon himself the role of an educationalist and social reformer. Now, how has he started his Sriniketan experiment, where he introduced adult education? We know Rabindranath Tagore as a poet, thinker, teacher, playwright, philosopher, and he has unfathomable knowledge of the society and mankind as the base of universalism. He founded Shantiniketan in natural surrounding, thereby giving a vent of his dream of weaving life with education. During his journey of life, to discover the emergence of ideal bond between mankind and society, he visited Japan in 1916. By 1918, December 18, he narrated his ideas about Vishwabharati, an ideal seat of learning, as follows: to seek to realize in a common fellowship of study the meeting of East and West, and thus ultimately to strengthen the fundamental conditions of world peace through the establishment of free communications of ideas between the two hemispheres. While the constitution of Vishwabharati was still being made, the work at Sriniketan was at its nascent stage. Although by that time poet had already tied up with Surul Samiti situated in the village Surul, next to Sriniketan, it culminated a full-phased rural reconstruction Sriniketan only by 19th November 1921. Under the leadership of Leonard Elmhirst, a British agroeconomist from Cornell, the first ever meeting held to initiate the work in rural reconstruction. This meeting was considered as the meeting of Provisional Board of Directors, Department of Agriculture. The framework of rural reconstruction and its activities were planned in this meeting itself, where it was decided that Elmhirst would be the director to initiate the work at Surul Sriniketan. Later, during December 1921, an estimate of expenditure was prepared and eventually the journey of Sriniketan started on February 6, 1922. Sriniketan witnessed the creation of different departments as required gradually. Initially, it had only two departments, that were Surul Department and Village Welfare Department. Later, Craft School, which called as Silpa Bhaban, Village Economics, which known as Gram Samiksha, Shiksha Shatra, etc. were created. Rural reconstruction was looked after by the Village Welfare Department. This was the department which brought forth the activities like health, creation of cooperative societies, night school, welfare of untouchable and tribal and women welfare, etc. to take care of village development holistically. The revolutionary attempt that had been taken during this phase was to start a Chalantika Granthagar, which is a mobile library, in 1925 with 200 books. It was introduced to reach the women in the villages who were not allowed to step out of their homes. Cycles were used as the vehicle to reach the women for long, and later part the cars were procured to sustain this endeavour. But unfortunately, it was noticed that elites of rural Bengal tried their level best to capture the benefits of such initiative and not letting it to spread among commons. Tagore's idea of adult education was never been an isolated plan, but always a part of larger agenda of rural reconstruction, where the adult education evolved naturally. In search of the root of such thinking, we got an indication of the very idea of adult education as part of education system itself in Bhandar magazine, edited by Rabindranath. Tagore's elder brother wrote a piece titled Lokshikshar Upay, the way to adult education. In this article, Jyotirindranath Tagore, the elder brother of Tagore, emphasized that knowledge and science, arts and crafts, and inculcation of expressions, these are not merely for inculcation. If it is not being spread among the commons and inculcate, then there is no well-being of us. Conspicuously, Elmhirst also proposed to start peripatetic university to reach the men and women in rural Bengal, where education would knock at the door of the people who are underprivileged and marginalized. Tagore's idea of adult education got enriched with such proposal, and he was determined to reach the totally marginalized people, men and women who were illiterate, orphan and socially being existed at the bottom of society at that point of time. In 1924, in Probashi magazine, Tagore made an appeal to the citizens of the country for financial assistance for women's education. Although it didn't receive much of attention from his countrymen, he continued his efforts. In 1930, he travelled to Russia, and his letter from Russia, he praised the initiative. How this education is spreading with great energy in all parts of the society here surprises me, not only in number but in fullness and without work, not only in White Russia but also among the half enlightened peoples of Central Asia. They are spreading education like a great flood. There is no dearth in their endeavor, so that these people receive the best of the latest scientific discovery. In February 1936, he addressed Education Conference in Calcutta during Bengal Education Week, in which he pleaded for Home University scheme. He made the observations therein: if examination centers are started in towns and cities of different states, those men and women in the country who are for various reasons deprived of the benefit of school education, then many will feel encouraged to educate themselves at home in their leisure hours. Their education can be properly directed if their syllabus and textbooks are clearly prescribed from the lowest to highest stages. The degrees that will be awarded through these examinations will be valuable in so far as they will bring social prestige and will be useful for earning a livelihood. On 18 September 1936, he wrote to then Education Minister of Bengal, Sir Azizul Haq, for changing the law for promotion of distance education Bengal by incorporating possible provisions. It has been reported that the government did not implement Tagore's distant education model in Bengal. That time it was reported there was no open university or there was no well established distance education centers in the world. Eventually, while Tagore's proposal was turned down by the Education Ministry of Bengal, he placed it before the authorities of Vishwabharati, who undertook to organize mass education on the line suggested by him in 1936. There were 3 examinations, Adya, Madhya and Upadhi, which were roughly corresponding to the matriculation, intermediate and BA standard. Although initially the work of this department was directed by Shantiniketan, later it got shifted to Sriniketan and merged with rural reconstruction officially in 1943. Bhubandanga, Shurul and Mohidapur, these 3 villages were the first places where from Sriniketan experiment for adult education started its sojourn. The syllabus included Bengali language, Bengali literature, history, geography, arithmetic, general knowledge, elementary Hindi, hygiene and science in different combinations for different standards. Under Tagore's direction and editorship, Vishwabharati undertook the publication of a series of books in Bengali known as Lok Shiksha Gronthamala on various subjects of scientific and general interests, specially written in easy language for general public. There were 6 subjects division of Vishwabharati publication, which were earmarked to be led by 6 set of different experts. These 6 divisions were like philosophy, where editors were Acharya Brajendranath Sil and Narendranath Sengupta. Science were having the editors, scholars like Ramendra Sundar Trivedi and Prashanta Chandra Mahalanabish. History, geography and economics were having editor as Jadunath Sarkar. Literature and history of literature edited by Pramatha Chaudhary. Art editors were Ardhendu Shekhar Ganguly and Surendranath Thakur, and educational science was being headed by temporary editorship of Rabindranath himself. There were 8 types of instructions, like a book cannot be more than 200 to 250 pages, language should be easy, and the prices should be limited only to 12 annas. To reach such publication to its logical destinations, the users at the village, Tagore arranged to reach those in the rural reconstruction centers at the villages, so that people could get the access of these books. The process of publication was headed by the head of the department of Vishwabharati publication, Sri Charu Chandra Bhattacharya and Pulin Bihari Sen. The first book from this initiative was of Tagore's, named Pather Sanchoy. Books were kept at the rural reconstruction centers in almost 15 villages in 1949, as it was mentioned in the Chalantika Gronthagar's report. These centers were located in Jadavpur, Noadanga, Shitalpur, Shantalpada, Goalpada, Laldaho, Alabanda, Gopinathpur, Adityapur Mohishadal, Paruldanga, Khoshkadampur, Ballabpur, Bhubandanga and Binuria. He ushered many changes in Vishwabharati regulations to get the Lok Shiksha Samsad as recognized academic body. Act of Lok Shiksha Samsad in the Vishwabharati Act 1951 says, Section 7A, notwithstanding anything contained in Section 7, the university may establish and maintain at any place in India examination centers for home study courses conducted by its Lok Shiksha Samsad and recognize for such purposes as may be provided in the ordinances. The certificates awarded by the said Lok Shiksha Samsad, which is known as People's Education Council, on the results of examination conducted by it. About the certificates and residence of students of People's Education Council, there were information from the Vishwabharati Act 1951 number 29. The purposes for which certificates awarded by the Lok Shiksha Samsad, that is People's Education Council of the university, may be recognized by the university. 32 residents. Every student of university other than a student of its Lok Shiksha Samsad, which is People's Education Council, who shall reside in a Chhatrabas 2 or under such conditions as may be prescribed by the statutes and the ordinances. One conspicuous point of this endeavor of facilitating adult education was the continuous efforts of rectification of the examination processes. Tagore himself was part of the process by creating the question papers, which not only required the students to learn the respective subjects to answer, but also incorporate the capability to be creative enough to express one's own thinking through such answers. Professors from Shantiniketan used to meet the students at these rural reconstruction centers to discuss with the students from vicinity. And they never charge the fees for such a contribution that they have made. While Lok Shiksha Samsad started its journey with 2 centers, it grew over the time. Other than undivided Bengal, the centers were opened in Bihar, Orissa, Madhya Pradesh and Bombay. In 1941, there were altogether 11 centers which grew in 1942 to 64, in 1943 to 109. And the final blow to this endeavor, most of the adult education centers were in East Pakistan, and due to partition, it did become impossible to continue there. It was reported in the annual report of Lok Shiksha that while in 1948 there were 933 centers, in 1949 it grew up to 986. Since the numbers of centers were increasing, formation of Patha Chakra consisting of the adult education students were given priority to expand the light of education among commons. While there was a steady increase in students number, as it was reported in 1951 as 1,91,528, but 1954 and 1959 registered only 998 and 674 as students respectively. The examination centers were arranged in different places like educational institutions, libraries, literature academy, etc. This initiative received the blows thereafter. The decentralized examination centers were withdrawn first by Vishwabharati for economic reasons, and the examinations were arranged only in Shantiniketan. Then the students of adult education schemes were denied to participate in convocation, and thus lowering the position of Lok Shiksha Samsad itself. The decision reflected that adult education was not equal to conventional education, and the final nail on the coffin came as in 1969 Vishwabharati Authority declared through its declaration that the titles given by Lok Shiksha Samsad was going to be considered as eligibility only for job opportunities, but not for higher studies. Contextually, adult education was conceptualized by Tagore as social reconstruction through rural reconstruction to build a strong contingent of able citizens for the country. In that dream to be achieved, Tagore emphasized to bring life in education, to create an ideal society. Over the years, the changes that had been brought forth into the system in different pretexts did not really facilitate the foundation, rather necessarily weakened the efforts and thereby crushed the very dream. And therefore, the movement of adult education system itself received a big blow, which was not at all a very positive sign in case of movement of adult education system. Finally, adult education movement received a blow and died its natural death in that time. But what Tagore tried to achieve through this educational system was a boon towards the country's people's educational advancement. Thank you very much.